you guys saw the title. Yep, my Caribbean Medical School, it's closing. Actually, it's not closing. The campus is closing. So you guys probably have heard on my previous videos. I go to St. James School of Medicine, and they have closed their Anguilla campus. So the school's not closing, but what they're doing is they're consolidating. So they're going to be moving everybody to the same campus. They're building this beautiful multi-million-dollar campus in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I'll link some of that in the end of this video. So it's an interesting move. They've had two campuses for a really long time, and so they're going to be consolidating. They're going to be moving all their faculty, all their students into the one campus. It's in Golden Vale in St. Vincent on the actual big island there. And yeah, it looks like it's going to be a beautiful campus. They're investing a ton of money into it. They're really investing to level up and be at the top, competing right there with the big four schools. So it should be a really great thing in the long run for the students, and it'll help them get prepared. They'll have better facilities, better labs, and just a better overall environment. So I'm really looking forward to it. It should be a really cool situation. Like I said, I'm gonna add some video of it in here. You guys can kind of check it out and see. It's got beautiful views. I mean, still living in the tropical Caribbean life. Still have the fantastic food, the views, the beautiful weather, and studying a lot, right? Like studying a lot of medicine. So. Yeah, if you guys didn't know, go check out their website, and I'm going to link them below the actual YouTube channel. They've got stuff over on their channel as well, St. James School of Medicine. And they do their clinicals in the United States, in Chicago, in South Texas, and in West Virginia. So they do get licensed. They've been matching. They had over 100 people match in the last year. It's just been it's been a really awesome situation for me so far. I'm really enjoying my classes. I have my MD&E exams coming up, so I'll let you know how those go. Yeah, still in the process. For you guys that haven't been on my channel before, I am a chiropractor previously. I've been a chiropractor for 15 years. I graduated with my doctorate of chiropractic degree in 2010. I graduated from Southwest University of Naturopathic Medicine in 2017 with my doctorate in naturopathic medicine. And then I'm going to do another video. Somebody had asked me about my thoughts on going DO versus MD versus being a chiropractor and doing functional neurology. Actually, I think I'll just add that into this video now that we're talking about it. I didn't link to the comment, but the gentleman, if you're curious what the question was, go back to the previous video. So he had said that, he's 30, he's looking at another career, and he's kind of weighing his options about going like DO and trying to get into PMR, which is physical medicine and rehab, or potentially neurology, or going to chiropractic school and then getting his diplomate in chiropractic neurology from the Carrick Institute. So I have already done that. So that's a tricky question. So when I started chiropractic school, I guess let me circle all the way back. My chiropractor growing up, Dr. Pat Hale, fantastic guy. Used to help my back when I would kind of hurt it, either wrestling or playing football. I didn't know that there was like some weird stuff within chiropractic, because when I would go see him, it was just like a regular medical office. To me, it was no different than going to like the optometrist or the dentist. It was like where you went when your back was hurt. You go to the dentist when you need your teeth cleaned, you have a cavity. When you need your glasses, you go to the optometrist. I didn't know that there was like a weird history, or that doctors didn't like chiropractors or anything like that. So I got my biology degree from University of New Mexico. I played linebacker there. And then when I got done, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, if I wanted to work as a biologist or if I was going to get into healthcare of some sort. Never wanted to go to med school at the time. There was nothing that really interested me. And luckily, I was really healthy when I was young, so I didn't spend much time with the doctors. So I just didn't really have much experience with them. I had never been to a physical therapist either. So I started thinking about it, and I thought about my chiropractor. He played a lot of golf. He had a nice work-life balance. He obviously made a decent living. And it was like something that I was interested in doing, helping people not have back pain, having time to play golf or work out or whatever. At the time, I was working out a lot, doing bodybuilding. And so my brother was going to TCU in Fort Worth, and I found a chiropractic school in Dallas called Parker University. And my chiropractor told me that they had a pretty good program as well, and it was somewhat accelerated. So it was the only chiropractic school I applied to. I got in and I immediately signed up and went there. And then I think like maybe the first or second semester we had chiropractic philosophy classes. Now keep in mind, I'm a pretty hard science major. I was a biology and chemistry major. And there was some pretty non-evidence-based philosophy happening. Now, Parker was a mixed school. They did have a research center, but they did have a lot of the leadership was into what's called chiropractic philosophy, which is sort of the antiquated way of looking at the body. Words like subluxation, something I've never used in my practice in my entire career, where they talk about removing nerve interference by doing spinal manipulations. In my mind, it was spinal manipulations were to help people with subacute pain in particular, non-surgical pain, just to help people's recovery time. It wasn't to fix things necessarily, or much less try to affect your internal organ systems. And again, with my science background, it was hard for me to square those two things. Around that time, I started realizing that there was some animosity out there for chiropractors in the world. I just didn't know that before then. And so I started reconsidering. I was like, maybe I don't want to do this career. I was in my second year of chiropractic school. So I started thinking about going to DO school, and I was looking at TCOM, which is Texas College of Osteopathic Medicine in Fort Worth. While I was in Dallas, luckily I was able to go to all my brother's football games. He played football for TCU. So in 08, 9, 10, 11, I was able to go to all the home games, and they were undefeated a couple of years. So that was a really fun experience. I could see my brother. My parents would be able to come visit both of us. So I was looking to stay in the DFW area. But I started running the numbers, and I would have to prep for the MCAT and take that. That would take probably a year at least. I had already, spent the money for 2 years of chiropractic school, so I only had about a year and a half left. And even so, if I had taken the MCAT, I'd have to apply. Assuming I got in, I would have to wait another year. So there was 2 extra years added on. So I just kind of ran the numbers and just looked at the opportunity cost and said, if I start working and say I make $100,000 a year. Versus say making $250 or $300 as a PMR doc, and there really was no specialties that I was interested in at the time. Physiatry was fairly new, but I even still to this day there's not a lot of specialties that I'm particularly interested in. Primarily only neurology, PMR, and osteopathic neuromusculoskeletal medicine. But I wanted to have an increased scope. So I kind of ran the numbers, and if I say I made $100,000 a year, I think I calculated it would take me 15 years to break even. If I had gone to osteopathic school, matched into PMR, took out the loans, had the opportunity cost from not working for those 7 years, and decided that just wasn't the right move because I needed to get my career started. I was 26 at the time, or I was 26 when I graduated, so I was probably 24 or 25 at the time, but it had never really worked. It's pretty old to not be putting anything into savings or anything like that. So my first job out of chiropractic school, I actually worked in integrated practices. So I worked at a clinic in Dallas called Your Clinic, Su Clinica, with Dr. Enid Romanelli and Dr. Prasad, who were internal medicine doctors. So I worked in a medical clinic immediately. So I've never really worked with chiropractors before. Even to this day, I've still never worked with any chiropractors. I owe a lot to the field. I'm very grateful for the field, but some of the organizations, some of the people, we just don't see eye to eye, and there's some personality quirks that don't necessarily mesh. So I worked in a medical environment for the first 3 years or so of my career. When I lived in Cincinnati, I worked with Dr. Dagey, and I worked in the McCullough Hyde Hospital system temporarily, primarily doing soft tissue work. And then when I moved back to Albuquerque, I kind of started working with fighters, and then that niche kind of grew into my YouTube and all those other things. So I've kind of always been sort of on the periphery of the medical community. While I was in school, I was really interested. Dr. Michael Hall at Parker got me into clinical neurology, and just kind of explaining neuroplasticity and how the brain works and how you could impact those systems, the cerebellum, the cerebral cortex, the musculoskeletal system, by using input, whether it's vestibular or manipulation or vibration plates or things like that. So I did the Carrick Institute program, which is a 3-year postdoc program. I ended up sitting for the boards. I passed, which made me a board-certified chiropractic neurologist, but I don't really use it much in my practice. I still have a very primarily conservative, orthopedic approach, where I'm treating subacute pain, mostly using soft tissue therapies, but some manipulation, obviously. But I just haven't found the type of stuff you do with the chiropractic neurology. You almost need to tailor your practice specifically for that because it's so different, it's so niche, it's so specialized. And I do think it has a lot of value, particularly for people that have, TBI and vestibular issues and things of that nature. So I think those guys are brilliant. And I loved my education with them too. I just don't utilize it all that much. So it's a good path. It's a shorter path. I know chiropractic school is a lot more expensive now than it was when I went through. I think when I went through it was $80,000 tuition for the entire program, and I think it's like $130 or $140 now. And back then the cost of living was super low too. So I lived in Dallas. I paid like $300 a month for an apartment back then. So I was able to get out with very little debt. I'm not sure that's possible right now, and chiropractic wages really haven't gone up over the years. So it can be done to make, as a solo practitioner, you could probably. I don't think ethically you can make over $150,000 to $200,000 a year just from treatments. Unless you're just running people through and having an insurance mill, you can probably get up to $300,000 or something like that. But as a physiatrist or neurologist, you're most likely going to have a salary when you're an attending or whatever, $250 to $500, even more if you do a fellowship and specialize. So there's just a lot more guaranteed income to be had as a physician, whether you're DO or MD. Than as a chiropractor. Also, you're not going to be dealing with the stigma that chiropractors deal with. So that is a hard thing for a lot of us to deal with. When you're helping people, that you're dealing with the social stigma of people constantly trying to belittle you or your work or your career, not based on what you do, but just because of the stigma that comes with the word. And if you guys want to look up the history of that, you can look up the Wilkes lawsuit. There's a long history of why that is in this country. It goes way back. Like there's the Wilk lawsuit against the AMA. That's crazy. The conspiracy, the Monopoly Act that was happening, but it still permeates. I mean, you don't get rid of those beliefs overnight, and they're passed down from generation to generation, which is sort of like professional bigotry. Where for me, it's like I think all professions have their place. I think physical therapists are great. I think there are some good chiropractors. I think massage therapists can be outstanding. Obviously, physicians. Anybody who's kind of staying in their scope of practice and doing their best to help people and being reasonable and using the standards of care, I support. So all that being said, it depends where you are in your life. Like, it matters about the opportunity cost, about how long it takes, because medical school is a lot longer than chiropractic school. You're talking 4 years plus at least, if you want to do PMR neurology, you're doing 4 more years. So that's 8 years. And 4 of those years, your debt, unless you're already wealthy beforehand, your debt's going to be accumulating interest. So that's a big hole to climb out of. Now, once you're there, you can climb out probably a lot easier. There's going to be jobs. You can still do cash pay in those, particularly with PMR, not quite so much as neurology, but you can also do locums work in neurology as well. It's much more serious work, obviously. You're going to be working in the hospital, working with a lot more pathological patients than as a chiropractor. One of the nice things about chiropractic is like you're just you're helping people gain function, but you're not having to make huge decisions about people's lives because people generally shouldn't be that ill or sick when they're coming to see you. So it's a lot less stressful than being a physician. Now again, I'm just finishing my first year of medical school, so I haven't even entered clinicals yet. So, but I obviously know a lot of physicians. I've worked with a lot of them over the years. It's just a different animal. So. Amongst other reasons of why I decided to do Caribbean instead of DO, for one, schools like St. James, for example, will take my prereqs that I've taken already, like my organic chemistry 2, physics, all those other kind of things, where U.S. med schools will require you to take them over again if it's been a certain period of time, it's kind of wild. Like, if I got an A in that class in 2006, like, why wouldn't I still be able to use it? Are you saying that organic chemistry knowledge has changed that much in that time period? I promise you that it hasn't. Like, phosphates are still phosphates, kinases are still kinases. But all these systems are businesses. So it just, it wouldn't have made any sense for me to go sit in a classroom at a junior college for 2 years to take prereqs when I already have 6 college degrees, including a biology degree, 2 doctorates. I passed board exams for chiropractic neurology, naturopathy. I'm licensed in 3 states in all those fields. It's kind of demeaning to go back and take biology 1. When I have a biology degree, I have an anatomy degree. So, schools like St. James, oftentimes, it varies. Like, I don't get advanced placement because chiropractic won't go into that. So you still have to start from square one in medical school. But obviously, me having taken these classes before puts me at a big advantage compared to the other students, particularly in stuff like anatomy and MSK for sure, where other people are learning this stuff for the first time. but you don't get any advanced placement, for medical school. So you have to start from scratch. But you do get your prereqs that you've taken before, particularly at St. James. And, same thing with me, like spending money and time to go study for the MCAT at this point in my life just doesn't particularly make sense. Again, I've passed specialty board examinations. It would take me a long time to sit down and go over spectroscopy again and, all these other things that I spent time learning 15 years ago, just to prove that I'm capable of passing classes when, I've been at the top of my class the entire time. I was Dean's List, which is the top 3 in your class, my first semester, and we had like 103 people in the class. So obviously I'm capable of succeeding in medical school. But if you go the American route, obviously I have to go back and somehow prove that by taking the MCAT, and you see all these gray hairs, like I don't have a lot of extra time if I'm going to do this kind of stuff. And really what I was interested in doing, like I said, is regen medicine. I want to bring PRP and PIT and stem cell work and stuff like that back to my existing practice. So I'm not really looking to work in a hospital or something like that, if the opportunity presents itself or whatever. But as of now, my plan is to go back into my regular practice just to bring an expanded scope to help the things that I can't help with, which is, cartilage damage and degeneration and some nerve damage stuff that I need actual medicine to be able to make an impact on. Because I'm pretty good at treating, musculoskeletal pain that's muscular or joint related. And selfishly, some of it's for personal use and my family and staff too. Like I want to have access to stuff like PRP and things like that for my own personal use, to be honest. My wife wants me to have it available as well. So I don't think I have a clear answer for you. I'll just tell you the things that go with it. Like when you're a DO, your physician colleagues will treat you the same, obviously, because DO and MD are equivalent. The public, however, is still not that familiar with a DO degree, so you may spend a lot of your time explaining how you're not a chiropractor or not anything like a chiropractor. And I know a lot of DOs get frustrated by that comparison, even though, of course, the professions have a very similar origin story and were very linked for a very long time. Currently, chiropractors and DOs are very different because DOs are physicians. In the public sphere, everybody knows what an MD is, so you don't have to have that conversation. And, for me, my entire career being a chiropractor and a naturopath and having to kind of deal with those social biases, that was another reason why I would prefer to have an MD degree than a DO, even if I go to the Caribbean for it, even if I go to, a non-US school for that. The upside is because of my professional connections, I know a lot of, I can get a lot of letters of recommendation fairly easily. I know several program directors, and I'm fairly well known as well. So some of that might hurt me, some of it might help me, but I think that gives me a better opportunity to match than maybe some other students that are in the Caribbean. Although, like I said, all these schools, their match rates have been going up and up and up. So St. James, I think, they had an 84% match rate last time during the last cycle, which is like really good. So you're not going to match into a hyper-competitive specialty from the Caribbean, generally speaking. I mean, there are outliers, but you're not going to match orthosurgery or neurosurgery or whatever. I mean, no way in the world would I ever want to do surgery to begin with, but, for some people, that's their dream. You could probably do general surgery and OB, coming from a school like mine. But the vast majority of people that come to the school are going to do internal medicine, which is the path to a lot of other ones like cardiology and pulmonology and rheum and things like that. Family medicine, which is the path to a lot of ways too, pediatrics, and a lot of emergency medicine. We've definitely had people match anesthesia, but that's getting more competitive lately, and we've had neurology matches as well. So if you're at the top of your class at a school like mine, you could probably match PMR, neurology, kind of those middle of the road competitive specialties, OB. Anesthesia might be getting out of range, but it depends on like who you know and how well you score on step 2 CK and things like that. Like I can't complain about chiropractic. I mean, it gave me my life. Like I made a lot of money, both from my practice and from like social media. I was able to meet and work with all kinds of great athletes and celebrities, and I in a roundabout way met my wife through my practice. I've been able to help my family members and people like that who've had, pain and things of that nature. It's kind of made me into a little, mini D-list, F-list celebrity in some ways too, or, I get a lot of social perks. So I'll never criticize what the field has done for me, but, the field, it still needs cleaning up. And it's not something one person can do, I think it's on the right track. I think most of the schools are heading towards a more evidence-based curriculum, and there's more integration. The University of Pittsburgh now has a chiropractic program. I think that will go a long way to making things a little bit better for PTs and chiros and MDs to kind of understand what each other do and know their role in healthcare and don't overextend past the role. So I think that'll be important. So, but I'm also an extreme outlier. You know, we talk about survivorship bias. Like, I became a millionaire because of chiropractic, because my videos went crazy and I was able to do YouTube and Facebook and things of that nature. If I was doing this 20 years earlier, that opportunity wouldn't have existed. I wouldn't have been able to work with all these celebrities who wouldn't have seen my videos on social media. So it's easy for me to say, yeah, do that. But, you know, I think I was lucky. I don't think I'd be able to replicate it myself. And for every one of me, there's tons of people making 40, 50 grand a year, struggling, you know, buried in student loan debt. And while that can happen with physicians, it doesn't happen nearly as often as it happens to chiropractors because of the lack of ability to get a six-figure salary job. You're basically going to have to be a businessman also, where if you're a doctor, there's going to be jobs out there available for you. You could be a businessman too, but, you know, there isn't fallback, high-paid salary attending jobs in chiropractic like there is as a physician. And if you're planning on working 20 or 30 years, you know, 30, 40 years, probably the better move would be to go to DO school, or, you know, obviously if you can get into USMD school, which is extremely difficult to do. But DO school is a little bit easier to get into, and they've got, like, you know, an extremely high match rate these days. I love osteopathy. I think the treatment of osteopathy is really awesome. Like, actual OMM, OMT is really great. Most DOs don't utilize it. They just kind of use that as a path to be a physician. And then, you know, you always look at, you know, more affordable schools like St. James School of Medicine, which is pretty much the most affordable school in the Caribbean. And they have 3 rolling start dates a year. So, you know, you don't have to wait an entire year every single cycle to start. We actually have 3 chiropractors in our program right now that I know of. And I know a couple that have graduated from this school as well, who have matched into residencies. One's a neurologist, which is interesting. And I think one did family medicine, and he basically was going the same thing with regenerative medicine. So, you know, schools like mine, St. James School of Medicine, check them out, go to their website. Particularly if you're a chiropractor or like a PT and you feel like your scope is sort of limited. But if you're trying to choose between one or the other, I don't know. You know, like I said, now that 15 years has gone by, like, I'm at that break-even point, but like I'm way ahead of where I would have been because of social media. So I think I'm the outlier in that case. So in my case, it was better to go to chiropractic school, but I'm not sure that's going to be the case for most people. The only reason that I would say to do chiro instead of trying to become a physiatrist or, you know, even PT, I mean, you do a lot more things with PT as well, is if you really don't want to be in school that long. You know, there are chiro programs, I think, that are 3.5 years after your bachelor degree. You're 7 years minimum as a physician. You have to do 4 years of med school, 3 years are the shortest residencies. So the question is, how long do you think you're going to live? How long do you think you're going to work? I mean, that's what everybody's doing, is guessing. The gentleman I think that was asking was 30. You know, 30 is still pretty young. I started med school at 38. I probably won't work that long in medicine. Luckily, like I said, I've been able to make a lot of money on Facebook and YouTube and invest it really well. So I don't have the same strain on me that other people would have. But, you know, the other person that asked me the question was a chiropractor as well. Like, if you're a chiro looking to expand, I would definitely recommend, you know, a school like St. James instead of going like the NP route. I think that just, you know, when I have a bunch of friends that are NPs and chiropractors as well, and they do a lot of like anti-aging stuff and things like that. But, you know, if you're looking to expand your scope and you're kind of tired of dealing with like the disrespect out there, you know, I think all the chiropractors that I've spoken to that have come to my school like feel really happy with that decision. They feel prepared. They feel like they're ahead of the other students because of their chiropractic education, obviously, and they'll have their double doctorates. And for me, this will be my 3rd doctorate. So, yeah, it was kind of a long ramble about like chiro and physiatry. Yeah, if you guys have any other questions, drop them below. I'll try to address them on other videos. If it's questions about like what the schooling is like, or what a job market looks like, or, you know, things like that. Like I said, I worked for a company that was placing their providers into medical offices when I first started, and I searched them out and found them. That company doesn't really do that anymore, so that option doesn't exist. It's, as a chiropractor, you could approach a medical office and ask if you wanted a sublease for them, if they wanted to work with you. But, that's private practices are kind of disappearing anyway in the family medicine realm. So everybody's getting bought up. So those opportunities will be less and less if you're looking to, work in an integrated center. You can work in VA hospitals, but most of the chiros that work in VA hospitals don't make much money. They make, 60 grand a year, which is not a bad pay, but when you owe all that debt and you didn't work for 3 years, it doesn't necessarily make sense. Yeah, so anybody else, you got any more questions about what the education was like, one versus the other, or my thoughts on where the professions are going or the careers? A lot of folks, if they ask me, I would tell them, hands down, go to naturopathy school instead of chiro school. It's much more affordable. You can do some of the classes that are distance. A lot of our students in the naturopathic program were able to work part-time when they were in school, and the scope of practice is virtually the same. The downside of naturopathy is it's only licensed in 3 states. You'd have to live in New Mexico, Nevada, or Illinois, where chiropractic is licensed in all 50 states. So, some of that depends on where you want to live. If I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't change it because my life turned out so awesome. But again, I think I have a survivorship bias. If it hadn't gone this well, then I definitely would have probably regretted not switching over and going to osteopathic school or going to medical school earlier. I have a lot of friends that, they do have that regret because they're saddled with huge amounts of debt and they just, they don't have the charisma to have a busy practice. Some of them don't have the physical ability to it. So you have to be physically pretty strong to do soft tissue work. And, there's no lifespan to that. I've done it for 15 years. I could probably do it for 15 more. I'm 40 now, so anything more than that. Do I see myself doing the kind of deep tissue work with my hands when I'm 55? I'm not sure that's capable. Maybe it's possible. Maybe, again, I'm an outlier. At this point, I'm lucky my body doesn't really hurt, but you'll hear that story a lot from massage therapists, that they don't last all that long. So hopefully I answered that question. Like I said, if you guys have more questions, drop them below. If there's any questions on what the curriculum is like or what the NBME boards are like compared to NBCME, I can touch that in another video. I'll make sure to drop I'll stick the videos of the new campus somewhere in here. They might go at the end, they might go at the beginning. I might add one of each just so you guys can see the new campus. But my med school is closing. My branch is closing, but the med school is obviously still open, thriving. Go over and check out their YouTube channel, St. James School of Medicine. They are taking applications currently, and they have 3 rolling application cycles a year. So you can send in your application, and if you're ready to roll, you could start class in January. They also have one in March. You live on an island for a little while. And learn medicine, and then, like I said, they have guaranteed clinical spots in the United States, so there's no issue with getting licensed. That you can practice in all 50 states coming from St. James, you can match and do a whole bunch of different programs. So, anyway, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace out.